people out there that have failed to go to higher institutes of learning, including tertiary institutions, universities, and so much more, probably because they cannot afford tuition fee. And that is what brings us here to the Higher Education Students Financing Board, which was established by the Act of Parliament number 2 of 2014 to provide loans and scholarship schemes to students that wish to pursue higher education in universities and recognized tertiary institutions of Uganda. So let's go and meet the executive director, who is going to tell us more about this loan scheme. Stay tuned. This is the Education Forum, and my name is Amuge Victoria. So like I had mentioned earlier, today we are here at the Higher Education Students Financing Board to find out the progress of the implementation of the loan scheme. And on the show with me is Michael Opiema Wanyama, who is the Executive Director of this board. Welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you so much, Vicky.
It is nice having you on the show.
Nice being interviewed on UBC.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you too. Well, first things first.
Yes.
Would like to know why this board was started in the first place, when it was started, its aims and objectives.
Thank you so much. The government of Uganda has put into place a number of interventions to increase access, equitable access to education from the lower level to the higher level. And over years, we have had a number of programs like UPE, USE, and RIPOLET. So over time, we realized that the learners who had been supporting at the lower levels needed to complete the education cycle. So the major problem was now how to access higher education, because many of them that we are supporting who are poor could not afford to pay their own fees to universities and other tertiary institutions. So the NRM government, during the campaign of His Excellency in 2011, he promised Ugandans that he's going to aid the learners who don't have money to be able to get a loan so that they can now pay for the fees at the higher learning institution. And that's when the entire discussion of financing higher education through student loans started. So in 2011, the process of putting into place the legal framework started, and the law was enacted in 2014 by an act of parliament. So Higher Education Students Financing Board is a body corporate established by an act of parliament in 2014, mainly to fund students who are joining higher learning institutions for both diplomas and degrees and postgraduates. So we do fund students with the loans. We also have a mandate to give them scholarship. At the establishment, we are given two mandates, loans and scholarship. So we deal with the financing of higher education. And largely our main goal is to increase equitable access to higher education with various objectives. We support critical programs that will spur economic development in this country. We support students that don't have the money to fund themselves. Then we also ensure regional balance in terms of when we are giving out these loans. We want at least learners from all parts of the Uganda, all parts of the district to have access to higher education. And being a loan, the other big or major objective is also to ensure that this is a revolving fund, implying that when we give you a loan at the end of the day, at the end of the period, as we shall discuss it, you must be able to repay so that another learner in a similar situation like yours is able to access this loan.
Okay, well, so this is actually a very interesting scheme, personally. Yes, because during my time of study, I realized that there are so many people that couldn't access this kind of opportunities.
True.
Yes, and now there are about 1,000 students that do not have the fees.
True.
Okay.
True.
To go through higher institutions of education. True. So what kind of requirements are needed of some of these students to apply or to qualify for these loans?
Just like I said, this scheme is meant to support students who cannot afford the fees at higher education institutions. Here I mean institutions that offer diplomas and those that offer degrees and postgraduate studies. So basically our major role is to aid them to study. Now, like you have observed, the population growth in Uganda is quite high. Every year we have about 100,000 students sitting for Uganda Certificate of Education. But at the end of the day, about 40,000 or 45 are taken to join either universities or other tertiary institutions. Other tertiary institutions, we mean these are the institutions that teach diplomas. Now, you realize that of those, government supports about 10,000 on merit scholarship. 4,000 go to the universities, about 6,000 go to other tertiary institutions, implying 35,000 students have to fend for themselves on the private scheme. So you realize that at the universities, there's a cost-sharing model that majority of the students, and actually that forms the major revenues for tertiary institutions, that most of their revenue is internally generated fund from private students. But you also realize that many of these do not have money. Actually, many students that pass at Uganda Certificate, Advanced Certificate of Education, don't get money to join universities. So we come in to support them. And I want to say, on average, we get about 6,000 applicants who apply on a yearly basis. And the number is small because we have put emphasis on sciences. The scheme currently, the law is clear that we fund students who are doing accredited programs in accredited institutions, implying that we are supposed to be funding both sciences and humanities.
Well, also before we continue, is there, do you look at performance and the grades of the students when they're coming from the secondary schools? Because I believe not everybody gets the opportunity.
Yeah, we are going to discuss that. Like I said, the law says so long as you are doing an accredited program in an accredited institution. Now, what happens is, for us, the starting point, you must be admitted in a higher education institution. So the moment you are admitted, then we now look at other parameters that will make you be eligible to join the scheme. So in terms of eligibility, who is eligible for this scheme? One, you must have been admitted in a higher learning institution. Two, you must be a Ugandan. Three, you must demonstrate that you have a financial need. And we shall talk about that. How do we then choose the few that we take on among the so many who apply? And three, you must be joining a chartered institution doing accredited program. You know, sometimes you find that there are some programs that are offered at institutions, but which are not accredited by National Council for Education. So we normally tell the applicant, ensure that you're applying for a program that's approved by National Council. Two, that you're applying in an institution that is also accredited and given a charter through National Council for Education. A charter is assented to by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda. So we have put emphasis on sciences, but the law is non-discriminatory, but we have to get a starting point. So the students currently we fund, you must be doing what we call STEM, sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics. In brief, just think of any science. In health science, agriculture, ICT, but we are also opening up the space. I'll tell you that beginning this year, we are going to fund students who are doing hotel management and tourism. Having realized that that's an area that's bringing in a lot of money, but we have not trained and gotten the relevant skills to manage the sector. Because you realize that most of the people who are managing these hotels, who are hotel managers, are coming from Kenya. So that's the beginning point. Now, when you apply online. Formerly, we used to say you can place your application in any branch of Centenary Bank, and then they would push those forms here. Given that we are now in the digital space, we have also simplified it. We don't want a student who is applying from Moroto, Arua, Kabale to come over here, so you apply online, and it's working quite well. You must attach on the relevant documents, UCE, Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education. You must attach on your photo. You must attach on a recommendation from the former school that you last attended. The essence of that, we want to find out whether you were able to pay your own fees at that institution, or whether you were being supported, or whether you had difficulties, so that we verify that information. We also get a recommendation from where you stay. So we need a recommendation from LOC 1, place of abode, to satisfy to us that that's where you stay, because we verify this information. We visited the homes of the applicants. We want really to know that the information you have given to us is true and authentic. So we visit. And I'll even later tell you that sometimes those who falsify information and they are discovered, they are disqualified from the scheme. We must also get a letter of recommendation from the sub-county chief, being the government employee, among other information. So that information now comes to us and we are able to process, plus quite detailed information regarding your socio-economic status in terms of your ability or inability to finance higher education. And that's the information we put in our scorecard to determine among the so many applicants who succeeds and who doesn't succeed.
Michael, you mentioned something about disqualification. So in what circumstances exactly are the students disqualified, apart from when you find falsification of where they come from, their background?
I want to say that one is we don't give loans to all those that apply. We need to make it very clear here. Because on average we get about 6,000 annually that apply. But the resources, that's the money that we get from government, normally supports about 1,500. So in percentage-wise, we support 25% of those that apply. So because of the limited resource, 75 miss out. That's the first thing. But of course, the obvious is that if you give us wrong information, which we are saying falsification, we automatically disqualify you from getting this loan. For instance, you claim that you are an orphan when you are not an orphan, and we verify, and to the best of our knowledge, we discover that your parents are still alive. We have had those cases. Because we give loans to persons who are disabled, those are like automatic. Many times some people also fake disability. We have had instances. I'll give you an example. Last year we had an instance where someone said he's deaf, but he provided a telephone number. So when we called, he picked and was able to call. So that automatically disqualifies you. Now, also when we have given you a loan and you fail to progress academically, you fail at the institution, that automatically also disqualifies you. If you change citizenship, though it's not very common, because we have said these loans are meant for Ugandans. So should you change citizen, automatically it disqualifies you. Conviction of any crime, along the way you are convicted of any crime, of theft, and something that borders on your moral obligation, we also disqualifies you. Then the dismissal by the higher learning institution, if they dismiss you. Those are the circumstances under which one can be disqualified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there are a number of expenses in universities and institutions in terms of tuition fee, research fee, and so much more. So what exactly does this loan cover? Does it also cover some of these expenses?
Yes, for the beginning, we, at policy level, the ministry and other stakeholders, we agreed that because of the limited resource, we are going to do what we call a cost sharing. The government is going to give you some money, and then you'll meet also these other expenses that are not major. One, remember this is a loan. We don't want to grow it so big so that you fail to pay. So what we cover, we enable you to be in class. We call it academic cost. In a technical term, we say we cover direct costs. That includes tuition fees, functional fees, research fees, and for persons with disability, we also give them money to meet aids and appliances. In case he wants a wheelchair, we support him. In case he wants a braille. So that's essentially what we cover. The learners cover the other component of looking after themselves. For instance, accommodation, meals, essentials like stationery, etc. Largely because we don't want the loan book to be so big. And we have not seen so many people failing to cover the other component. Using the resources that we have, it also allows us to cover a reasonable, substantial number of applicants. So that's the area we cover. So on a cost sharing model. But going forward, we are trying to discuss and see on case-by-case basis whether we can also aid those that are financially handicapped to the level of not being able to cover accommodation and other expenses. But we are trying to cure that by encouraging learners that, for instance, if you studied from Gulu High School and the course that you want to do is attainable at Gulu University, why then do you want to go to Kabaale University? Apply at Gulu University, be able to ride the bicycle or walk, go to the university in a similar way you used to go to Gulu High School. So we're also trying to, because this is a loan, and even many of us fear to get loans from the bank in as much as they are available. You take what you can consume. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. So Uganda has about 30 universities and more, and most of them are accounting for about 110,000 students in the university and having about 30,000 students graduating annually. So what universities are approved here?
Like I said that for you to qualify for a loan, you must be doing an accredited program in an accredited higher learning institution. And we find students in both universities and other tertiary institutions, these that teach diplomas. So now, we have gone further to say, for you to get a loan, you must be in a chartered university, both public and private. Now, all public universities, 10 as they are known, Makerere, that is Gulu, Bara University of Science, we talk about Muni, we talk about Kyambogo, we talk about Lira, Soroti, among others. They are 10. So you're eligible if you have applied and been admitted in that university. We also have 12 private chartered universities. Chartered universities are over 40 now. I think the total number of universities together is over 50. But out of the 40, we only have 12 chartered private universities. Just to mention a few, we have Ondeje, we have Uganda Christian University, we have Uganda Matters University, Kampala International University, Kampala University, we have Bugema University, Nkumba University, Bishop Stuart. Mountain of the Moon was previously a private university, but now it has become a public university. So you're eligible to apply in any of those. The moment you have been admitted for any program of science nature, I'm just using the word science nature, in health science, in agriculture, in engineering, in nursing, pharmacy, among others, you're eligible to apply. Save for persons with disability, and I want to put emphasis on this. If you have any form of disability that can be described and lead you to be said you're a disabled person, you are free to apply for any course of your choice. So those ones, we fund them to do either sciences or humanities. Background to that is that they are challenged to do sciences. Say if you are blind, you will not be able to be in a lab. If you are lame, it may be very difficult for you to walk from one area to the other. So we allow them to, and so far we have funded about 71 students who are disabled. So if you are disqualified, if you are disabled, in our scorecard, it's like automatic, you're eligible. Now, in addition to universities, we also find students who are doing diplomas in other tertiary institutions. These are institutions that are examined, public institutions that are examined by Uganda Business Technical Examination Board. So we talk about Eligoni Technical, Kichwamba Technical, Boshenyi Technical, among others. We have heard about them. These that offer diploma in civil engineering, architecture, mechanical engineering, electrical. Then we have those that offer health sciences and Uganda Allied Health Examination Board, and under Uganda Nurses and Midwifery Examination Board. You're in Mulago doing any form of nursing, a course in pharmacy, a course in midwifery, among others. You're eligible to apply. So we fund students for both diploma and degrees. And in a way, this has also helped universities, to largely private, to work out and ensure that they have all the quality parameters required by the National Council to make them a chartered university. So there is a list of what must be in place, largely aiming at ensuring that quality education is offered that leads you to get a charter. And when National Council for Education approves that, then they write to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda to assent to the charter and sign the charter. So
Right.
that's what happens.
Okay. Now, after the students have applied for these loans, in some cases they finish their course of study, and sometimes they fail to finish. Now, in cases where the students die or leave the country, or any kind of problem that comes in the middle there, what happens? Do they still pay for these loans?
Yes, these are loans. We need to differentiate loans from scholarships. Loans are repayable at the end of the period. So we are going to discuss the period. When we give you a scholarship, that's not repayable. We cover everything, but you don't pay. Now, circumstances under which you must pay loan is, even when you fail to complete, we give you a loan. You are dismissed under those circumstances that we talked about. Dismissed by the university, convicted of a crime, left on your own. For us, the loan remains due, and we follow it up. But what we require from you is to come to us and we agree on the repayment period. So we normally work out a repayment period that is conducive to both the parties, we as the funders and you as the beneficiary. Then the other one is a loan is repayable after the period of study. So we give you a grace period of 1 year. We assume that within 1 year, you're still looking for a job, you're still looking for something to do. Even if you have what to do, you also need to reorganize yourself, achieve a few things, and start paying. But also, we have encouraged what we call early repayment. One can start repaying back the loan even the very first year he or she enters the university. And this is normally agreed between we and the guardian of the learner. The instances where you may be financing a learner and you said the university I may not afford it because I'm just a guardian. Because this loan is attached between the beneficiary and the parents. So we realize that a guardian says I'll be able to pay some 20,000 every month. Even using the early repayment window means that after completing you may get a good job, and within the grace period you come and pay. And I'll tell you that 25 students so far have used this window to pay back. There's an interesting question you asked. What happens in the event that a learner passes on? Actually, many parents sometimes get worried and they think we shall resort to taking away their property. No. What we have done is we have an in-house kind of insurance scheme. When we give you a loan, you pay 1% of the gross loan amount, of what we call loan protection fee. I want to demonstrate it this way. If we give you 4 million, you pay to us 40,000. It's just 1%. If the loan is 5 million, you pay 50. And this money is put into what we call a sinking fund to mitigate against death or permanent disability. You may get a permanent disability. So we draw from there. So cumulative wise, if we have given out, say 5 billion, that's already 5 million. And God forbid, we have, on a good note, we have not had many incidences of death. A few, that's why I said God forbid, we have lost about 6. So we draw from there. We don't go back to their parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking about the parents being scared of their properties being taken, their houses and all that. Now, in most cases when loans are being given to people, they're given to people that have assets or something that in case they fail to pay for the loans, they could get something. Now, for students that are in school, they don't have any assets. You know, because at the end of the day, you're going to come out of school, you don't have jobs or something, and not every human being is as good as we think. So what happens in such scenarios?
Yeah, but the education loans we are giving can be categorized under social loans. We do not need any collateral because we are saying you are poor, and the parameters that identify that you are poor is because you are lacking these things. You don't have any property, the parent doesn't have any property. Because we assess the socio-economic status of a parent, and you must prove that really a parent is poor and doesn't have these items. So if we had put collateral security, then that would mean that we would be targeting a different group, the group that is able, the group that is rich. So in this instance, we don't look at collateral security. For us, our security is the degree of the diploma that you are going to get. And we know that over time you'll be able to use the academic qualification that you have attained to get a job. Just like you now, you're working. All of you who are in this room, you're working because you went to school. You know, when you go to school, it increases your chances of getting employment, and that's for us our security. And we also look at what programs are we funding. If you look at the programs we are funding, largely programs where we still need the human resource. Areas of doctors, we still need them. Teachers of science, we still need them. Nurses are still needed. So when they qualify, we are seeing many of them getting jobs. I know it may take some time. It's just a timing difference that you may not get a job immediately. You qualify. Don't know if you that do get, but over time you'll be able to get a job. So for us, we look at what you'll be able to do after you have attained the qualification that will enable you to pay back this loan, and that's the security. We don't look at collateral security. We don't resort to the parents' assets. No, we deal with the learner.
Okay, so in cases where students, someone watching may be asking this question as well.
Yes.
Like in case I had part of the money,
yes,
and wanted part of the loan.
Yes.
So does the board offer like
Look at
partial
it.
loans?
Partial loans normally come in when you're already on the scheme. But at the inception, in our scorecard, that would then place you among the haves. It will show that for you are able. After all, you have some money. And we are targeting those that don't have. And indeed, you know, when these learners apply, majority of them have nothing. So now you have to make a choice between the one that already has something and the one that doesn't have. And in most cases, our scorecard favors the one who doesn't have. But along the way, if you realize some income streams, even your parent, maybe by the time you got a loan, he was out of employment. But along the way, he gets some form of employment. It can be informal, it can be formal. And he says, I'm able to finance my daughter, my son, my child. You withdraw from the scheme. We have had those instances where you fund a learner for 2 years and says, I'm withdrawing from the scheme. It's acceptable. Or where he says, now I have my brother, by the time I started working, he didn't have any gainful employment, but now he's willing to pay partial. So that's acceptable. So along the way, it's acceptable. At the inception, it may not benefit you very well because we are targeting those that don't have completely. Yes.
What happens to someone that comes back 5 years after they studied and may probably stopped in the middle because of certain circumstances or personal issues? What happens if that person would like to apply for the loan? Do they qualify?
They do. And I'll tell you that I personally, I have a soft spot for such people because it truly demonstrates that they didn't have. That's why they have been at home. Because why would one be at home for 5 years if he had money? It really shows. Actually, you don't even need to go into a lot of scrutiny and verification of his information. The mere reason that he has been at home for 5 years is a clear indication that he didn't have. So they do qualify. But in terms of age, I'll tell you that we fund you even if you have been at home for 10 years. You finish studies in 2010. By the time you are coming to us, you're about 30 years. So we fund almost up to 35. 35. We have even funded the learners of 38 years. The only thing we look into, I'll give you an example. Someone applied at 51 and wanted to do medicine. So you realize by the time this person finishes a course in human medicine and surgery, does internship, will be towards the retirement. So when will he pay the loan? So we do assessment of that, of all that. We score you, but that will disadvantage you a bit. The age will disadvantage you a bit. Yeah. So you find that our scorecard will favor these people who are less than 35 years. Beyond that, it starts disadvantaging you.
Okay. Well, we have also talked about scholarships, so we haven't gone into detail with the scholarships. You talked about offering scholarships as well. So what kind of scholarships exactly do you offer?
The framers of the law put up a scheme that comprises of both loans and scholarship. And the understanding at that time was that we should have a one-stop center that deals with financing of higher education. That's going to be considering all forms of financing of higher education. Students can be financed through cost sharing, through loans. Students can be financed through bursaries. Students can be financed through scholarship. But for now, we have not yet handled scholarships. Merit scholarships are handled by the Minister of Education directly alongside with the tertiary institutions. Bilateral scholarships are also handled by the Minister of Education. Other MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies are also handling scholarship. But we are still having a discussion on that because it's a good idea that we have a one-stop center that deals with all forms of financing higher education through loans, through scholarships, through bursaries, and through other forms. So we as a board, we haven't started handling scholarships. Okay. Yes. All right. Maybe the other thing I wanted to talk about is just the number. It's also, people need to know about the numbers and maybe some of the affirmative action we have taken. Since we have been around for 8 years, we have funded 12,780, and out of those 4,000 ladies. I think that's very important. We have had affirmative action for areas largely from north, Karamoja. I want to inform the viewers that for the first time last year we did a lot of awareness campaigns in Karamoja, and we received 146 applications from Karamoja for sciences. You can imagine, because many times people think our brothers from those areas don't do sciences, and we gave loans to 131. That's about 92% on affirmative action. So we're also doing a lot of affirmative action for hard-to-reach areas, Kalangala, Vuvuma, Kabong, some of those districts. In most cases, learners who apply from there automatically qualify because the numbers of applicants are still small, and we want to see growth in terms of the enrollment ratios in those areas. So I felt I needed to bring out this clearly, but also to put emphasis on repayment. These are loans that when you get loans, you must be ready to pay so that other learners who need this money can also benefit from it. So I want to call upon all the students that we gave out loans to. We are reaching out to them. We want to thank Bank of Uganda. It allowed us to be listed on Credit Reference Bureau. So all the learners we are giving loans get financial card. The essence of that is that when you go to any commercial bank in the future, they will be asking you whether you have been servicing your loan. Failure to do that, then it will deter you from getting loans from other commercial banks. And then we are doing a lot of work with the Federation of Uganda Employers. I want to thank them in terms of explaining to the employers their role in remitting the loans that have been obtained by the learners who have completed and are being employed by various forms. So I want to call upon all learners to pay back the money, and thank those especially that have paid ahead of time. You know, they have paid ahead of their repayment period. I did mention that 25 students have paid during grace period. And this is a good thing that even other learners should pick lessons from. Okay.
All right, so if you're just joining us on the show right now, today we are here at the Higher Education Students Financing Board, and we are finding out we're finding out the progress of the implementation of the loan scheme. And yes, many of you out there may not have heard of this before, or are sitting at home there and do not have the fees to pay or tuition fee to go to the university and tertiary institutions. Well, we are going to study more and get to learn more about the loan scheme. Well, stay tuned. This is the Education Forum. We'll be back after this break. You're welcome back to the Education Forum, and as I mentioned before, we are still here at the Higher Education Students Financing Board, and today we are talking about the progress of the implementation of the loan scheme that many of us actually don't know about. And yes, that is what we do on the Education Forum. We're here to educate you. Our guest on the show today is the Executive Director, Mr. Michael Wanyama. Yes, and he's taking us through the loan scheme. Michael, during the 100 years celebration in Makerere, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament talked about giving of loans. I mean, students from the good schools, say for example, Namagunga and yeah, those expensive schools, very good schools. In most cases, the schools are attended to by rich students. yes, rich
Yes.
people's students. But then at the end of the day, they're the ones that get these scholarships because they are the ones that pass highly. And then those from the low, I could call them low class schools,
Yes.
do not get these scholarships. And yet they're the ones that actually need these scholarships and loans. So why not, for these students that are rich, pay the fees and then the others get the scholarships?
Yes, I happened to attend the celebration, and I must say I liked the opening up of that discussion, especially when it's coming from the top leadership of this country, more especially from the Deputy Speaker. It's a discussion that has been on, and I think we now need to pick it up from there and discuss the best way of financing higher education in this country. Because what he meant is that the children of the rich are studying free, while the children of the poor are now again the ones being given a bigger burden of getting loans. I think what he was trying to say is that majority, not all, that majority of the students on government merit scholarship, and we are talking about 4,000 students doing degrees, while the other 6,000 are doing diplomas. But this 4,000 is 3,000 that are on government merit, the other 896 district quota, and then you find a few through games and that kind of thing. Now, his argument was that the majority of these students are able to get on merit because of the high intake points that they consider by virtue of the good schools that they have attended. You did mention, just think about the first class schools that we have around. We know them, Namagonga, Vudo, Kisubi, Kitende, Seta, ABCD. And his argument was that these are learners whose parents pay even much more than what is paid at the university, so they can afford. And I think this is a good discussion. But for me, I want to pick it up from the 1992 government white paper. This is after the blueprint, this is the white paper that was giving us the direction that we are supposed to take as higher education. What kind of education system did we need? But I want to put focus on higher education. There was a recommendation in that there should be an establishment of the student loan scheme that will fund students to study higher education because of the growing number in the population, because of the lack of affordability by the parents. Remember, we are moving from one university that we had then, Makerere by then. Remember, it's in 1992 that the government opened up the landscape for higher education. That's when we started seeing in the private players coming in. Now, before that, because of the small population, whoever would pass and join Makerere would study on scholarship. So when they opened up space in a private university, which was a good idea, that the population had grown, many students were passing, but now they were not able to join Makerere. So please join another university where you are able to pay and attain higher education. But we also realized that over time again, many qualifying students are not able to pay. So I'm happy that the government indeed started the student loan scheme, but has maintained that small number of scholarship. So I think this discussion is good. Why don't we think about availing opportunities of studying to the so many Ugandans who are missing out, so that we can turn some of this money, if not all, to the loan scheme, even among those merits, those who would go on merit, if they cannot afford, they have an opportunity to come and borrow. And then in the future, they're able to pay. This is happening worldwide. I will even talk about on the African context. We have more than 15 countries now in Africa that are availing loans to their students to study higher education, so that at the end of the day, they pay back later. Indeed, the government cannot afford sponsoring students on scholarship, merit, or call it whatever scholarship, free education. You know, the budget is just too huge. But parents are willing to fund those who can afford. Learners are willing to borrow those who cannot afford, so that they pay. What we are saying that at the end of the day, this creates a revolving fund. And when you are creating a revolving fund, it therefore means that the loan scheme in the future will have its own money to finance. If you look at our resource mobilization strategy, in a longer term, we're even talking of creating an education bank. You know, a bank where parents can put small money, you save 20, 10, so that at the end of the day, you're able to borrow and pay, you know, expenses for your child. That's what we, you know, the vision that some of us have. So that any learner who cannot afford goes back to the loan board. At that time in the future, maybe some of us will not be here, but it will be an education bank which can assist the learners by way of paying fees for their higher education. Okay. It's a good discussion. And I appreciate that we are now beginning to talk about it. We need to really sit down and see how best we can take that discussion to another level. But I agree with the deputy speaker's views that we need to start the discussion. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, and also further speaking about scholarships. Well, just like scholarships are always graded depending on the performance of the students when joining these institutions. But
That's
then
right.
also, how eligible can one be for these scholarships?
No, the merit we are talking about, that's obvious. They take the best performing learners at Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education.
Are these scholarships paid
No,
back?
no. Scholarship is free money. So we have given you a scholarship. Other countries call them bursaries, others call them grants. It's free. You are studying free, entirely free. And the form of scholarship that we have in this country, the merit, they cover both academic cost and non-academic cost. So they pay for your academic related cost, tuition, functional fees, research, and then they also aid you with the money for accommodation, meals, and they even give them some little stipend to be able to continue
Upkeep.
with the upkeep, call it upkeep. So it's entirely free, and that's, I think, the discussion that you are trying to drive to. Should we continue giving free education to those that can afford? But remember, I'm also putting a disclaimer. It's not that all of them can afford. There are few, but majority. So we are saying, let's increase the basket for loans. Even if you have performed well and you don't have the money, you'll run to the loan scheme to borrow. And maybe that drives us into future, into something that, like I told you, we are funding STEM, science-related courses. But in the future, we should be now thinking of opening up to critical humanity programs. So we shall be working out with the universities in the terms of ensuring that they fund courses that add value to what we are doing in this country. Courses that give people practical skills that when they come out, they're able to employ those skills to do something for themselves or easily get employment. Now, when we do that, then we shall stop saying we're only funding sciences. We shall be funding critical science program and also funding critical humanity program. So whoever qualifies in any of those will have a basket where to borrow from. So we are saying let's grow the loan book. Let's grow the loan amount. It's possible. I'll give our viewers statistics. Annually here we fund about 1,500. That's what we funded last year. Tanzania funded under loan scheme 74,000 students. South Africa 101,000. Kenya 36,000 students. Rwanda 13,000 students. So our numbers are still small. And that explains why our growth enrollment ratio is also still small. It's just 6.8 in terms of those who are able to attain higher education at the relevant age. While actually, if you look at our national development plan, they are saying for any country to take off, you need a growth enrollment ratio of 40%. World average is of 26. So we need to be working hard. We need to be thinking smart. What strategies, what interventions do we need to put in place to ensure that we finance, especially learners who have passed and are unable? You see, that's why I get the pain. Okay. That you have worked hard, you have passed, but you're unable. And at the end of the day, you have no any form of funding. That's what we are looking at.
All right. So as a board that offers these loans, who will benefit from the initial student's loan, and does the loan attract interest?
Yeah, like I said, we the beneficiaries, we have explained that. Those are those that are unable. It's only that we don't fund all those that are unable, and that's something I'll put emphasis on, that we need to increase the resource envelope so that we fund whoever. And remember, uh, right now we are receiving on average 6,000 applicants. And with our funding model of cost sharing, of only considering the academic cost, the 6,000 would require about 30 billion. It's attainable. It's achievable. I think and we are in discussion with the members of parliament. The sector is in agreement. We can get the 30 billion as we also increase on our recovery modalities. Now, this is a loan, and you know our money loses value. So what we have done, we have looked at our inflationary tendencies, and our inflation has been in a single digit for over a number of years. It has never gone beyond 10. Maybe now it could be almost there. So we tagged our interest to the annual inflation headline. The essence of this is to ensure that we don't erode the value of money. So it is 70%. If we give you 1 million now, we are assuming that when you pass this 1 million after 5 years, you'll pass 1,070,000. Very small. We are the cheapest in the market. You know what's happening in commercial banks? They charge about 18 to 24 on the commercial loans. For us, we're only charging 70%. Essence is to ensure that the value of money is maintained. And the government has said it will maintain it at a single digit, and it will never go beyond 10%, double digit. So, because we are dealing with the learners, we are dealing with the students, they haven't gotten what to do, they are still, they are struggling, so we don't want to make it expensive. We make it cheap so that it's easier for them to pay back, so that we can finance other needed students.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, there's so much that we have had to talk about,
yes,
stemming from loans and scholarship. So I would like to know, like, the progress of this loan scheme, and then also, how do you get it out there to people? Because I've also personally met a number of people that do not really know that the loan scheme exists for higher education. So how do you sensitize people about it?
We are doing a lot of what I would call awareness campaigns. And I want to demonstrate by what happened last year. We moved a lot. We use a lot of these community radios. Any fora that you invite us to talk about student loans, we are there. We visited almost, on our statistics, we visited the 60% of the districts in Uganda last year. What happened? At the end of the day, we got so many applications, so many applicants applying, but then we didn't have the money, enough money to cover all of them. And the question was, why are you then telling us about the scheme when you cannot even afford? But for us, it's okay. Let's make learners and parents be aware about the scheme so that we increase their chances of getting onto the scheme. So we are doing like what we are doing now, and I want to thank you so much. I want to thank UBC for giving us this opportunity on the Education Forum to talk about this. It's one way of reaching out to the public. We use newspaper, but not so much. We run sport messages. We are on social media a lot. We have a Twitter account. We have WhatsApp account. We are using, social media handlers. I have a department of communication that's very, very, very vibrant. And I want to say that as of now, we have created more awareness about this scheme than before. And even going forward, we have developed a communication strategy. We have a clearance charter, and we are demystifying this information to the public. So, information, you cannot say you have done enough and you stop. Just like you continue doing this on a weekly basis, we shall continue reaching out to the public with the time. So we are still doing a lot. There's a lot in our plan, in our work plan, what we intend to do this year. Funds being availed. This is a government agency, and sometimes our budget is also affected. So we want to reach out to UBC, but we cannot afford. But we are doing a lot in terms of using, and other DCs have allowed us to use a community radio. We talk a lot in chat. We use an available opportunity to reach out to. But also one thing I want to comment about is that, our target group are students. But you see, the time I've interacted with the students, even when they are listening to radio communication, television, they don't want to listen to these programs. You'll find them searching for music, searching for, you know, some other play, and that kind of thing. So, but we are doing a lot, and I want to thank you for joining us in this awareness campaign about what the loan scheme is about and what it's doing.
Okay, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
And also, no organization works on a silver platter. Never happened. So I'm very sure you have challenges as a board. What are some of the challenges you face when trying to implement the loan scheme?
Yes, indeed, there are challenges everywhere, and some of us learn from those challenges to see how we can create strength from them. But the obvious one that has come through our discussion is the increased number of applicants that outpaces our resources. So that talks to the issue of limited resources. Like I told you that ideally, my request is of about 30 billion to be able to fund the students that apply, because all the students that apply need this money. But many times I get about 5 billion new resource, meaning that I can only bring on board about 1,000. So my biggest challenge is limited resource, and I want to still use this opportunity, thank the Parliament, thank the Ministry, especially the ministers, for the support. But there's still more that we can do. Having explained the few new financing models that we are advocating for, if they can approve them, then they can bring more resources on the table so that we can increase on the number of the applicants who want to benefit from this money. The other challenge that I can also bring to this forum is fragmented admissions by the higher learning institution. You see, in this country, we don't have a joint admission board. Every institution admits on its own. So what that implies to us is that we have applicants applying for loans at different times. But we must put them in a pool and then award the loans because we have a single source of funds. So that creates delays in giving out results to some of the learners. I'll give you an example. Kyambogo has just admitted, Kyambogo University, Makerere has just admitted. But learners in some private universities in this academic year are already starting the exams. But we must wait for some of these universities to admit, get applicants from them, then we sort out who qualifies among the so many applicants. So that has led us to advocate for a joint admission board, that going forward, the government could be thinking through on how best we can synchronize that. Because some learners can prefer to make a private university as their first choice, and then a public university as their second choice. But what is happening now, that learners do what we call multiple application. They apply in 5 universities. Get admission in a public university, get 2 admission in a private university, use all those application forms to apply for a loan. So they give us more extra work to sort out. And you know that a learner admitted for this course in Makerere is the same learner admitted in a private course, university for a different course. And that gives us a lot of work. So that can only be cured through a joint admission board. But we are picking up this discussion. We shall bring it to other stakeholders, and it is happening in other countries. Kenya has a joint admission board, a central admission board. Tanzania has. It can happen. So we are starting the discussion together with other stakeholders. Yes. Well,
just clarity on what we had discussed earlier. We talked about the loans being eligible to the students that are doing science courses. Okay. So what happens to the students that are interested in the arts and they actually don't have the tuition fee? What happens to them?
The law that operationalizes this scheme is non-discriminatory. It says an eligible student is the one admitted for an accredited program in an accredited institution. It does not talk about sciences, it does not talk about arts. But of course, in operationalizing the law, you also look at other policy documents in place. and one of it is the National Development Plan. What direction are they determining for this country? Where do they want to drive? Because you see, that is like, in simple terms, the strategic plan for the country. It defines the direction that we must have as a country. And it has put emphasis so much on sciences that that's the area where we still have gaps in human resource, and we need to up the game so that we get enough doctors, we need to get enough nurses, enough science teachers, enough engineers. So for the beginning, we had to start from somewhere, and we had to follow that, and that's what we are following. But like I said, we're also opening up space. We have opened up space for persons with disability, because they're able to do any program, even in humanity, in order to address the needs of persons with disability at lower levels. We're also funding all those programs that train people in special needs. And most of them are attainable at Kyambogo, bachelors of education with special needs, bachelors of teacher education with special needs. Those can be done by someone who has done arts combination. This year, we have also allowed in hotel management, tourism sector, and that kind of thing. Because again, when you read the NDP3, it realizes that this is one area that's bringing in some good streams of income to the nation, and therefore must be strengthened and broadened and supported. And we are saying we also now need to train people in that sector of tourism. And these are degree programs that can be also done. Largely they are done by people who have done arts. So we're opening up space, and the board is also discussing, together with other stakeholders, trying to analyze, even in humanities, what are those critical programs that this country needs. And there are many. And I'm sure next time when you interview me, I'll be giving you a long list of humanitarian programs that we are beginning to support.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Nice having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Through. Are there any last words you'd like to?
Yes, one is, I must thank my host. That's the very beginning one, UBC. You have been our very good partners in this exercise. You really support us, and the love that you have for education, because you realize the advantages that come from an educated population. They're able to get employment and increase on the country economic resources. They reduce poverty in the nation and that kind of thing. But from the financing angle, my last word is to call upon those that have given loans and they have graduated, they have even completed grace period, to ensure that they start repaying. Those that change their telephone numbers, email address, we are calling upon them to give us the new email address. And we are saying, don't wait until we reach out to you. Because when we reach out to you ourselves, there are many penalties that may come with that effort that we have put in. So we agree on the repayment plan. We have made it very friendly. It's double the period that you have been at the institution. If you studied a course for 3 years, we are giving you 6 years. So the struggle of repayment is not going to be so hard. It's friendly. So I want to call upon all those that got loans to start repaying, so that we use the same money. We increase on our recoveries, get resources, and be able to fund other students in the waiting line. Thank you so much, UBC, once again.
All right, so I guess you have learned so much from the Education Forum today. And remember, our focus today was in the Higher Education Students Financing Board. And yes, if you are out there seated home and you are not in school and did not know about the loan scheme, well, you have a chance to go back to school. You have a chance to finish your education and make your life better. And that is what we do on the Education Forum. Well, my name is Amuge Victoria. Until next time, stay safe.